Sir, could you pretend to be my daddy? Just for one day. The morning sun cast long shadows across the quiet city park as Marcus Thompson adjusted his navy blue suit jacket. He sat on the old wrought iron bench, newspaper spread before him, trying to escape the weight of another difficult day at the office. As CEO of Thompson Industries, his mornings usually began in glass-walled conference rooms, not on park benches. But today felt different. Today, he needed a moment of peace. The gentle rustle of autumn leaves provided a soothing soundtrack as Marcus turned the pages of his newspaper. The business section held little interest this morning. His mind wandered to the empty penthouse apartment waiting for him, the silent dinner table, the phone calls from his assistant that had replaced any semblance of a personal life. A small voice interrupted his thoughts. "Excuse me, sir." Marcus looked up to find a little girl standing before him. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old, with golden curls catching the morning light and bright blue eyes that seemed too knowing for her age. She wore a cream-colored dress that looked carefully pressed, and a small green hair clip held back her wispy bangs. "Hello there," Marcus said softly, folding his newspaper. "Are you lost, sweetheart?" The little girl shook her head, her curls bouncing gently. She twisted the hem of her dress between small fingers, a gesture that spoke of nervousness and hope intertwined. "No, sir, I'm Sophie," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been watching you read your newspaper." Marcus glanced around the park, searching for any sign of parents or guardians. The morning crowd was sparse. A few joggers, an elderly woman feeding pigeons, a maintenance worker tending to the flower beds. No one seemed to be looking for a lost child. "Where are your parents, Sophie?" Marcus asked, his voice gentle but concerned. Sophie's eyes dropped to the ground. She kicked at a small pebble with her patent leather shoe, the simple action carrying the weight of a much larger story. "Mommy had to go to heaven last year," Sophie said quietly. "And Daddy, well, Daddy was never really my daddy." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He set his newspaper aside completely, giving the little girl his full attention. Something in her posture, in the careful way she chose her words, told him this conversation was important, perhaps more important than any board meeting he'd ever attended. "I live with Mrs. Henderson now," Sophie continued. "She's nice, but she's not very good at playing games. And tomorrow." Sophie's voice trailed off. She looked up at Marcus with those impossibly blue eyes, and he saw something there that made his chest tighten. "Hope. Desperate, fragile hope. Tomorrow is the daddy-daughter breakfast at my preschool," Sophie whispered. "All the other kids will have their daddies there. And I'll be the only one sitting alone." Marcus felt his world shift slightly on its axis. This small, brave girl was facing a pain he understood all too well. His own father had missed every school event, every birthday, every moment that mattered. Work had always come first. "Sophie," Marcus said carefully, "what exactly are you asking me?" The little girl took a deep breath, as if summoning all her courage for this moment. "Sir, could you pretend to be my daddy, just for one day?" The question hung in the morning air like morning mist. Marcus studied Sophie's face, seeing the vulnerability beneath her brave exterior. This child had approached a complete stranger with a request that spoke to the deepest human need for connection and belonging. "Sophie, Marcus began, then stopped. What was he about to say? That he was too busy. That he didn't know how to be around children. That pretending to be someone's father, even for a day, was too complicated. But as he looked into Sophie's hopeful eyes, Marcus saw something else entirely. He saw himself as a child, watching other kids with their fathers, wondering what it felt like to have someone show up just for you. "Tell me about this breakfast," Marcus said softly. Sophie's face lit up like sunrise. "It's tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at Little Sunshine Preschool. We get pancakes and orange juice, and then we make craft projects together. The teachers say it's about spending special time with someone who loves you." Someone who loves you. The phrase echoed in Marcus's mind. When was the last time anyone had needed him for something beyond his business expertise or financial resources? "And Mrs. Henderson can't come?" Marcus asked. Sophie shook her head. "She has to work at the hospital. She's a nurse, and people need her help. She said maybe next year, but..." Sophie's voice grew smaller. "There might not be a next year at this school. Mrs. Henderson says we might have to move somewhere cheaper. Marcus made a decision that surprised him with its swiftness and certainty. Sophie, I would be honored to be your pretend daddy for the breakfast. The transformation in Sophie's face was immediate and breathtaking. Her smile was like watching flowers bloom in fast motion, pure joy spreading from her eyes to her cheeks to every part of her small being. Really? She whispered. Really? Marcus confirmed. But we need to call Mrs. Henderson right now and make sure this is okay with her. Sophie nodded eagerly and pointed to a woman on a nearby bench, a kind-faced woman in scrubs who had been watching their interaction with careful attention. Mrs. Henderson, Sophie called out, running toward the woman. Marcus followed, and for the next 20 minutes, he found himself in the most important negotiation of his career. Not with board members or investors, but with a caring foster mother who wanted to ensure Sophie's safety and happiness. Mrs. Henderson studied Marcus with shrewd eyes, asked thoughtful questions, and ultimately smiled with relief when he offered references and contact information. Sophie hasn't stopped talking about this breakfast for weeks, Mrs. Henderson said quietly. I've been dreading having to tell her she'd have to miss it. The next morning, Marcus stood outside Little Sunshine Preschool wearing his best casual clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt that his personal shopper had assured him were approachable dad attire. He carried a small bouquet of daisies, Sophie's favorite flower, as she had shyly mentioned the day before. Sophie ran to him with arms wide open, and for a moment that felt both foreign and completely natural, Marcus hugged a child who needed him. Not his money, not his connections, not his business expertise. Just him. The daddy-daughter breakfast was everything Sophie had promised. They made handprint art, built towers with blocks, and shared stories over pancakes. Marcus found himself laughing more than he had in months, seeing the world through Sophie's eyes, a world where simple kindness was magic and where showing up was the greatest gift anyone could give. As they walked out of the school together, Sophie slipped her small hand into his. Thank you for being my daddy today, she said softly. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. Thank you for asking me to be. And in that moment, Marcus realized that sometimes the most important business deals aren't made in boardrooms. Sometimes they're made by a little girl in a cream-colored dress who teaches a successful man what it really means to be needed.